Before this video starts, I'd just like to say I will be streaming tomorrow on Saturday, February 2nd at 5 p.m. GMT. I'll be talking about the Regera event, doing some multiplayer, and more. Hope to see you there. Hey guys, Furum here, and today I will not be testing the Lightning LS-218 in multiplayer in Asphalt 8, as I have decided to not go for any new vehicles added to Asphalt 8 for the most part. ThunderMo has kindly provided me with these races in his Max Pro Lightning. At this rank of 1795, which is its highest rank, it can go 309 miles per hour without supercharge, and with supercharge it can go 332 miles per hour. Faster than any other vehicle in the game. I'm pretty sure this is real speed, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. So it seems that this bike would be an extremely formidable competitor in multiplayer. As you can see, we're flying past this McLaren X2 right now. But the thing is, as with all bikes, it's not the most stable thing and not the easiest to drive either. But if you are a master in bikes, this is definitely the best one. It actually handles and drifts fairly well, its nitro efficiency is also pretty good, and there's nothing necessarily bad about its stats. It's all around a good bike, stats-wise. However, it does tend to be a bit wrecky, if you know what I mean. Thankfully, the bike doesn't wreck here when we hit the wall, but it seems like it is very wreck-prone in a lot of cases. So we're in second place here, ahead of that X2 and behind that Apollo IE. Now one thing you've got to keep in mind when driving any bike is while they're supercharged may be extremely fast, especially in this bike's case, when you're not in supercharge, you're going to be slower, a lot slower than if you had supercharge in most cases, and most likely slower than cars around you. In this case, we're 10 miles per hour slower than the X2 and Apollo without supercharge. So yeah, that's why that X2 was catching up throughout that race, but we still managed to come in second position. The Apollo IE was Max Pro, and the McLaren X2 was nearly pro'd out. Now for a race on Nevada, against the same McLaren X2 we beat in the previous race, as well as a Lamborghini Centenario at Max Pro. As you guys know, that event was very grueling, requiring nearly 13,000 tokens to upgrade, and there were no free upgrades in its R&D, so needless to say, not a lot of Hope people managed to get it. And there that Centenario bumped us and we wreck into the wall, putting us back into third position. However, not all hope is lost, as this Centenario comes up next to the X2 up there. The X2 knocks him down, it looks like. At least it seemed that way. Perhaps the Centenario wrecked on something, but since they were right next to each other, I'm gonna say the X2 knocked him down. Here, with supercharge, we begin to catch up to this X2, but it runs out fairly quickly. That's the problem. You can't just run and supercharge the whole race, and therefore the most of the race is going to be spent being slower. With that said, one of the probably best things that you can learn to do on a bike is figuring out how to get the most supercharge you can by doing a lot of perfect stunts and stuff like that, just so you can have more of that higher top speed throughout the races. So that Centenario who wrecked, we've still managed to stay quite a bit far ahead of throughout this race. However, that X2 has gotten quite a bit ahead, and we come in second position here. Nevada is a fairly good track for this bike, and any bike in general, as with any other track that has a lot of ramps on it. Now for a race on Azure Coast against two McLaren X2s. Now this should be a very interesting one, because this is 2 laps. Those X2s start up faster and are 10 miles per hour faster in terms of speed. Now you may think, well, this bike has a lot of supercharge, you can catch up. But you gotta remember, Azure Coast doesn't really have any ramps. So the only way on this track that you can really get supercharge in a bike is just by perfect nitroing a whole lot, and you can maybe get one full thing of supercharge per lap based on that. Now back there, that X2 wrecks, I'm not exactly sure on what, maybe the buses, but that puts us into second position. However, it will not be easy to hold this position considering that this bike is quite a bit slower than those, but we'll have to see how ThunderMo does. And it seems like around these turns we're catching up fairly close to this X2 right there, because the X2 does not actually have the greatest drifting capacity. Handles very well, doesn't drift great. So I'd like to talk a bit about something rather abnormal that happened recently in Asphalt 8. So there was a patch sort of update introduced recently that added one new car, the TVR Cigar Special Edition. Not in the Lunar New Year update, which will be coming later, but as a patch to the previous update. To my knowledge, Gameloft has never added a car outside a big update before, so yeah, this is a rather interesting occurrence, and I'm still not exactly sure why they decided to do it. However, I'm not complaining. Honestly, I think it's pretty cool to just get a car occasionally in a patch. That is one thing that I think they could do maybe more often to spice things up a bit in between updates. But let's talk a bit about the car itself. At first glance, it seems to be fairly good. It has a low starting rank, high ending rank, tuning kit bonus of 57, which isn't especially great, but it's not too bad either. And at Max Pro, it does about as good as the R8 SE. And here the bike randomly flips over and explodes. Seriously, go watch that again. There's nothing that caused that. So the Cigaris SE seems great, and I like the design as well. Then the R&D came along, and we figured out just exactly how bad it actually was. Not the car, but how you have to get it. So the R&D apparently requires a nearly Max Pro tune to pass the final 2 AIs. The car has 6 token upgrades and gives no free upgrades in its R&D, so that means you're going to have to pay for those 6 token upgrades, unless you can somehow find 6 A-class upgrades elsewhere or pay thousands of tokens on upgrades for the car. And it's not even like some king or anything, and since you have to be nearly Max Pro to win it, this completely kills the whole point of special editions, which were to be good in multiplayer at lower ranks. That is, of course, unless you spend a few thousand more tokens to auto-pass the final 2 AIs, and maybe get it then at a slightly lower rank to do okay in multiplayer. The whole thing is just really messed up, and I'm very glad I quit going for new cars. So we lost to 1x2, but beat the other one after a fairly close battle with it, and a poor unboosted Trion Nemesis. Now the next race is on San Diego Harbor. Let's see how this bike does on one of the best tracks for bikes. In this race, we are facing a Max Pro Centenario, a fully pro'd out X2, and a 1684 Holden Coupe. Yeah, he must definitely not have been risking points. So the great thing about San Diego Harbor is that it's a short, twisty track with plenty of ramps, which is everything that a bike needs to succeed. However, when you've got a bunch of other really good cars on the track as well, it's not so easy. As you can see here, we are catching up to this Centenario, passing him, but then we run out of supercharge and he gets ahead again. So yeah, that's what a lot of bike and car races tend to be. If you got a really good bike driver, it's the bike catches up with the supercharge, maybe gets ahead a little bit, and then he runs out of supercharge and slows down, then the car passes him, and then that all just goes back and forth throughout a lot of the race. Even on a track like San Diego Harbor Reverse, which has plenty of ramps for the bike to get supercharge, you're still more in not supercharged than you are in supercharge. So we come in third, but not too far behind the X2 and Centenario at all. Just about a second behind one and 2 seconds behind the other. And as you can see, being above 1680 and not risking points can lead to some pretty bad matchmaking for you. So yeah, if that's you, risk points. Now for our final race, which is on Venice against a 1769 X2, so not fully pro'd, and we have a 1766 fully pro'd MP425, which is actually slower than this bike without supercharge, so he probably will be easier to beat than the X2. Unfortunately, this bike is a bit fragile, and just touching something can apparently cause you to wreck. But not all hope is lost. Venice is also a fairly good map for bikes. While it doesn't have too many ramps, it has a decent amount of them, I guess, and plenty of turns, which it can get around with ease. So as we witness what this bike can do coming back from 4 out of 4 position, let's give our general review about this bike. It is definitely the best bike in the game. It is the fastest one in the game, and definitely a lot better than the Ninja in the drifting and the nitro efficiency. And stats-wise, it's very, very good. And we've come back into 3rd position. Thankfully, this is a 2-lap race, so hopefully we will be able to catch up a bit more. Another thing going for this bike is its humongous supercharge of over 20 miles per hour. You've just got to be able to keep it going somehow. Now, the bad things about this bike include, well, being a bike and therefore not being the easiest thing to drive, as most bikes in Asphalt 8 tend to be, but also being a bit fragile. But if you can learn to control bikes, honestly, you can do some really great things with this, especially if you pick really good tracks that have lots of ramps, lots of twists, and things like that. Here, because that McLaren MP425 wrecked back there before the curve, we're now into 2nd position, and since we're faster than him even without supercharge, we should be able to stay ahead of him for the rest of the race, as long as this bike doesn't randomly flip over or do something like that again. It's really annoying when something like that causes you to lose a race. Thankfully, it didn't do anything back on that Azure Coast race, but it has cost me some races before. So we're coming up to the end of this race here with that X2, well, really not too far ahead, and we come in 2nd position. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to ThunderMo for providing these races, and please like the video if you've enjoyed and consider subscribing for more Asphalt 8 and 9 content. And I'll see you in my next video and hopefully in tomorrow's stream. Goodbye!